Hi everyone, my name is Jim Roman and I'm the Associate Organist here at St. Luke's. And welcome to PipeWorks, a series dedicated to learning more about how the pipe organ works. I'm seated here today at the console of our wonderful Schantz organ. Schantz is an American builder based out of Orrville, Ohio. I thought it'd be nice to start at the console since I often get a lot of questions about that, and it's one of the most visible parts of the organ apart from the pipes you see behind me. So you'll see here something that looks similar to a piano. These are the organ's keyboards, or manuals as we call them. Now this organ has four. Some organs only have one or two, and the largest in the world have 7 and 8 manuals. In addition to that, and I'll talk more about why we have more than one in a minute, you'll see the pedal board down here. Because one of the unique things about the organ is that the organists also play with our feet. And you'll see that this is laid out very similar to how a piano or organ manual keyboard is. So of course, most of the time we play with primarily with our hands as well as our feet, but one of the really cool and fun things about being an organist is that we can also play pieces with just our feet. So I thought to demonstrate that, I'll play something based on a familiar tune. So you'll notice that on either side of the keyboards we have what are called stops. Now these stops each correspond to their own individual set or rank of pipes, and each rank of pipe has its own individual sound. Now these all function similar to an orchestra, where each player has their own instrument and the organist is like the conductor, and it's my job to make sure that all these instruments play together in order to make music. So all of the stops are grouped into what we call divisions, and each division corresponds to a certain keyboard. So on this organ, the keyboards go choir, great, swell, solo. On different organs around the country and even around the world, sometimes they're called different things and sometimes the order changes, but that's what ours is. So for example, now on the right here, this is the choir division. So you can see it's all in a column here, so that all corresponds to this keyboard. Then the great division, this keyboard, so on and so forth. So you may be wondering why they're called stops though. That's because when the stop is pressed in, it stops the airflow into the pipe. So for example, even though the organ is on right now, no stops are pulled, so nothing happens when I play. When I pull stops out, it opens the valve and lets air in, so now I can play. So you've probably heard the term pulling out all the stops. That actually comes from the organ. So when an organist pulls out all the stops, he's using the full resources of the organ. Much like when you're doing something and you pull out all the stops, you're using all the resources available to you. So I often get a lot of questions about what these little white buttons are under the keyboards. These are called pistons. Pistons are a really cool feature of modern day organs in that they allow us to assign pre-selected combinations of stops to any of these buttons. Because before we had pistons, organists used to have one or sometimes two registrants, or people who would be pulling stops for them while they were playing on either side of the organ. Now organists can do that all by themselves while they're playing, and these are all conveniently located so that while we're playing, we can hit them with our thumb, or we can reach up with a finger up there. And we even have some over here that are duplicated for the feet, so if both hands are busy, we can press them with our feet. So most of the pistons fall into two categories. The first are general pistons, and we have 16 of those on this organ. General pistons have the ability to change stops throughout the entire organ. So as you can see here, everything is being affected. The other kind are called divisionals. Divisionals correspond to their division, or each manual has its own set. So for example, the great divisionals only affect stops that are on the great. So even though 16 generals and 8 divisionals per manual may seem like a lot, an organist may use just that many throughout the course of a single piece on a concert program. So in order to give the organist a greater degree of flexibility, we have what are called memory levels. Now this organ has 99 levels of memory. What that means is that each of these pistons can be reprogrammed on each of those levels. So we can have 99 general 10s and 99 general 9s. So instead of having just 16, in reality, we have 1,584 general pistons. So up here we have a whole other row of tabs. These are called couplers. What's something really cool about the organ is that we can play multiple manuals or divisions at one time. So for example, if I want to play a sound that's up on this manual on the swell, but I'm playing down here, I can couple that using that coupler to play down here. So they're playing the same thing now. And I can also have stops here, so I'm playing both. Now, another cool thing about the organ is that, so if this was middle C, right now it's coupled at pitch. There's another one here that allows me to play an octave up without actually playing the note. And then there's another one that allows me to play an octave down without playing the actual note. So I'm getting the same effect as I would be doing this by just playing one note with all three couplers. So often people wonder what the difference is between playing the piano and the organ. And while there are obvious differences in how they're built and laid out, there are two main differences in the actual playing mechanics. The first is that, unlike on a piano, the velocity at which you hit the key has no bearing on the volume of the pitch. So loud or soft, it's all the same. The other difference is that, unlike a piano that starts to decay right away, the sound is sustained indefinitely as long as the key is held down on the organ. So in order to get some sort of musical phrasing and dynamic shaping, we have what are called expression shoes down here. Now, each of these expression shoes corresponds to a certain division. On the organ, there are what we have called enclosed divisions. Now, that means that some of the pipes are in a box, and the front of the box has an opening. Now, the opening looks sort of like Venetian shades or blinds on a window. So when these pedals are opened, the blinds are opened. When the pedal closes, the shades close. So you can hear what effect that has on the sound. So there's start open and listen when I close it. And then I can also get louder again. And that's something that's unique to the organ. So in addition to the three expression shoes on the left, the one on the right is called a crescendo pedal. Now this functions similar in that it affects the organ's volume, but not by opening or closing swell shades. Instead, it does it by adding or subtracting stops. So I can go in a matter of seconds from the quietest sounds of the organ to full organ and back again without having to press any pistons or pull any stops. And that concludes our tour today of the organ console here at St. Luke's. I thought it'd be fun to end each of these episodes with a couple of questions that have been submitted on social media or email. So this first question comes from Cody, and he wanted me to explain organ shoes. You may have seen me wearing these earlier. So most organists wear some kind of organ shoe. There are specially made organ shoes called organ masters, which are meant for the organ. Others, like myself, use dance shoes. These are Capazios. And the reason we use special shoes is because dance shoes and organ shoes typically tend to be thinner, so that when we're pressing pedals, we don't hit more than one pedal. They're also lighter, so that we can move around with a little more flexibility. It's good to have some sort of heel, because that way we can go from note to note, from toe to heel. And they also tend to have a leather or felt bottom, so that they can glide smoothly over the pedals without scuffing them up with rubber or something like that. Our second question comes from Edith, and she wants to know, do all organists have excellent sock game, and is it a job requirement? The answer is no, not all organists do have excellent sock game, even though they should, and even though it's not a job requirement, I think it should too. So you'll see me today, I'm wearing my keyboard socks. This is just sort of a thing amongst organists because our feet are usually busier than most other musicians and more visible than a lot of musicians. So it's just fun to wear fun socks to catch the eye. If you have any pipe organ related questions, feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll do my best to address them in a future episode. In the meantime, thank you for tuning in, and I hope we'll see you next time on PipeWorks.